All right, what's up, everyone? Tonight, we're going to be talking about the missing trillions. If you don't know what the missing trillions are, here's a clip for reference.
Number one, the Bush administration.
Well, I don't know if it's true. If it proves to be true that large gatherings of these folks actually can be located, and it actually happens and can be located, you can be sure there'll be people interested in that.
And I just wondered, do you feel the United States is winning the war on terrorism? And
Well, I think on the issue of massing along the border, the secretary pretty much covered that. We know that's where that's where a lot of the Al Qaeda fled, some of the Taliban probably for that matter.
I don't know why this is all clipped up stupid like this. This is the first video that came up, and I thought this was a different video.
Whether they're massing or not, I think remains to be seen. I would just tell you that from what I've seen, we have no evidence of that.
Back to Saddam Hussein, if not work, anti-aircraft capabilities, other capabilities. So
Oh my God!
A reasonable person could look at that record and say that it's worked.
And two, if these Al Qaeda are planning it.
I was not, gentlemen. No, he's claimed what anyone else.
So that's clearly not the right video, and it's been switched, and you can no longer find it on YouTube. Huh. Interesting. But anyways, let's I have another clip here on backup, so we're gonna play that one.
Apparently, now there's a couple of stories about this, but the first is from Lawrence Kotlikoff, who is a contributor to Forbes magazine, right? Capitalism here, right? We love capitalism. He writes, on July 26th of last year, the Office of the Inspector General, that's the OIG, issued a report, quote, titled Army General Funds Adjustments Not Adequately Documented or Supported. The report indicates that for the fiscal year 2015, that's 1 year, the Army failed to provide adequate support for $6.5 trillion in journal voucher adjustments. According to the GAO's Comptroller General, quote, journal vouchers are summary level accounting adjustments made when balances between systems cannot be reconciled. Often these journal vouchers are unsupported, meaning they lack supporting documentation to justify the adjustment or are not tied to specific accounting transactions. For an auditor, journal vouchers are a red flag that transactions are not being captured, reported, or summarized correctly. So the entire Army budget in fiscal 2015 was $120 billion. But they can't account for $5.6 trillion. This is because of the Defense Department's, quote, failure to correct system deficiencies. An appendix to the July 2016 report shows that $2 trillion in changes the Army General Fund balance sheet were due to unsupported adjustments. So, bottom line here is it looks like the Defense Department might have spent as much as $21 trillion since 1998 that we don't know about, and they don't know where it went, which is really strange, right? Where did that money go? Where did that money, $21 trillion, the GDP of the entire country is $15 to $16 trillion a year.
All right, I found it. And we're going to share it right now.
Estimate. Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. We cannot share information from floor to floor in this building because it's stored on dozens of different technological systems that are inaccessible or incompatible. We maintain 20 to 25% more base infrastructure than we need to support our forces, at an annual waste to taxpayers of some $3 to $4 billion. Fully half of our resources go to infrastructure and overhead, And in addition to draining resources from warfighting, these costly and outdated systems, procedures, and programs stifle innovation as well. A
Mhm.
new idea must often survive the gauntlet of some 17 levels of bureaucracy to make it from a line officer's head to my desk. I have too much respect for a line officer to believe that we need 17 layers between us. Our business process and regulation seems to be engineered
Sure
to
you do.
prevent any mistake. And by so doing, they discourage any risk. But ours is a nation born of ideas and raised on improbability. And risk aversion is not America's ethic. And more important, it must not be ours. Those who fear danger do not volunteer to storm beaches and take hills, sail the seas, and conquer the skies. Now we must free you to take some of the same thoughtful, reasoned risks in the bureaucracy that the men and women in uniform do in battle. To that end, we're announcing today a series of steps the Department of Defense will take to shift our focus and our resources from bureaucracy to battlefield, from tail to tooth. Today's announcements are only the first of many. We will launch others ourselves, and we will ask Congress for legislative help as well. We have, for example, asked Congress for permission to begin the process of closing excess bases and consolidating the B-1 bomber force. But we have the ability and therefore the responsibility to reduce waste and improve operational efficiency on our own. Already we've made some progress. We've eliminated some 31 of the 72 acquisition-related advisory boards. We now budget based on realistic estimates. We're improving the acquisition process. We're investing $400 million in public-private partnerships for military housing. Many utility services to military installations will be privatized. We're tightening the requirements for other government agencies to reimburse us for detailees. And we're reviewing to see whether we should suspend assignments where detailees are not fully reimbursed. We have committed $100 million for financial modernization, and we're establishing a defense business board to tap outside expertise.
Yes, this
We
was.
move to improve
This speech was from September 10th, 2001. This was the day before 9/11.
department's business practices. We can be proud of this progress, but certainly not satisfied.
This is why it was important, is because all this got swept under the rug on 9/11. That's why it was announced the day before. It's all premeditated. It shows that it was premeditated, that they announced all this kind of stuff the day before, and then it got all swept under the rug the next day.
To succeed, this effort demands personal and sustained attention at the highest levels of the department. Therefore, it will be guided by the Senior Executive Council, including Undersecretary Pete Aldrich, Army Secretary Thomas White, Navy Secretary Gordon England, and Air Force Secretary Jim Roach. These leaders are experienced, talented, and determined. I am delighted they are on our team. I would not want to try to stop them from what they came into this department to do. I expect them to be enormously successful. And
Yeah, so 2.3 trillion is what it says in this video from September 10th. So 20 years ago, it was 2.3 trillion. Now the current estimates are closer to 21 trillion. And if people want to find that information, they should go and look up Catherine Austin Fitts. So Catherine Austin Fitts has some info, and so doesn't a researcher named why am I using Yahoo? I should be using it Google or DuckDuckGo. I don't know why it just switches my search engine back to Yahoo. The other guy is Mark Skidmore, and he's an economist who started researching the missing trillions, and he puts the figure in excess of $100 trillion that they've lost. And so there's some really interesting economics going on with this missing money from the Pentagon budget. And Jesus Christ, what the heck could you buy with that kind of money? Think about it. What would you spend that on? You know, I did like a couple funny polls on Twitter, just joking around about what, you know, people would, what could you possibly spend $145 trillion on if it's really that high by this time? And there's estimates that, you know, that 2.3 trillion that they announced was actually like a figure of 10 off of the real number, even back in 2001. So yeah, it buys a lot of beer and coke and hookers and whatever the heck you could possibly spend that on boat trips, yachts, like Jesus Christ. Secret space program. Yeah, so deep underground bases and secret space program stuff. That's a good, you know, that would buy a lot of real top secret stuff, man. And super advanced spaceships, you know, we could build a Lazar facility out in the desert and, you know, on a secret island. And you know, now we're talking. Let's just dream, you know, what we could do with that 21 trillion. The fact remains that most alien believers think government has kept UFO existence from the public. About 3 in 5 voters believe in extraterrestrial life, and of that share, almost 4 in 5 of those people who do believe said that the government has concealed information about unidentified flying objects. So, interesting poll. And what those numbers say is a number of people are more likely to believe that the government is hiding the truth about UFOs. And it's absolutely true they are. They're hiding so much truth. And I think a lot of this UFO stuff that we're seeing in Congress and out in the public that's being shown is the fake stuff. You know, we have the we have folks like Jeremy Corbell, you know, where he's on. Let me share this video and people can listen to this again. I played this last night, but it's bears repeating.
In shape, the video you're looking at right now. Now, I feel like Mike Tyson against a 4-year-old. Are you kidding me? Do they not know what I have? I know I've spoken with more eyewitnesses than ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, or the Department of Defense, and even the UAPTF. I know I have more information than them. So
no, you don't. You have disinformation.
Naval Intelligence or the Department of video you're looking at right now. Now, I feel like Mike Tyson against a 4-year-old. Are you kidding me? Do they not
listen
know
to
what
this?
I have? I know I've spoken with more eyewitnesses than ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, or the Department of Defense, and even the UAPTF. I know I have more information than them. So this was hilarious to me. They literally tried to swamp gas us. They tried to pretend.
So this is the swamp gas is a reference to what happened at the last UFO hearings, you know, years ago and everything. And it's different what's going on right now in these hearings. These are more contrived. And Jeremy Corbell is what we call a fake champion. He's essentially this built up character who's they're flouting out into the mainstream as this champion of UFO research, that he's the champion. He's got the intel. Do they not know what I have? And you know, they're going to flaunt him as this sort of champion out there in the mainstream, you know, with this Elizondo and TTSA CIA operation that's also being run, you know, counter to the official narrative that's going into these public hearings. So they have the counter narrative being run by CIA, and then the official narrative being run at the desk level by CIA. And this character, yeah, a stringer. That's another a good word for it, of the role that Corbett is playing in this. A fake champion, I like to call it, because he's promoting himself as, Mike Tyson versus a bunch of 4-year-olds, which is a horrible, horrible analogy. It's just wrong on so many levels. But it's kind of, yeah, it's a carnival barker. Yeah, he's got this. He's going to sit there and tell the media that he's this UFO researcher. He's got all this experience and, years under his belt, and he drops a bunch of names of some people that's interesting. Um, but none of these guys have really lead anywhere to any kind of meat or potatoes or any kind of like real information. So it's another cover story for the classified stuff, because the classified stuff remains in the background. Again, when we went to the UAP hearing. I put this technical briefing together, and this is just what I figured out in the last 17 years with a bachelor's degree in physics and zero budget, just doing this in my spare time. So if I can figure out all this stuff and learn all this information about what went on in all these classified physics programs, how the physics was run, how the metallurgy was run, how the different compartmentalization of the different engineering and science went into a lot of these programs, and the background of a lot of the secret space program, and that a lot of information that was coming out on secret space program back before Corey Goode and David Wilcox stepped on the scene and kind of took over the secret space program literature, and derailed a lot of that research into a lot of the real interesting history of solid state physics that goes back to that time period, and where some of this stuff might have gone off to. We debunked a lot of the claims that were in Philip Corso's book, except for this whole shape retention alloys thing, which kind of it dates back to these UFO metals that were recovered, and a lot of people talked about them. There's dozens and dozens of eyewitnesses, and we speculate on what kind of materials those might have been, based on advanced material science of our own time and what we know about different types of materials. And we talk about quasi crystals, amorphous different structures of materials, and Edgar Fouché, who mentioned a former Area 51 employee who talked about metamaterials and quasi crystals back in 1998, said that that's what a lot of the research was being done out at Area 51 and going on into a lot of that stuff. Again, none of this stuff was really brought up or mentioned at the UAP hearings, but a lot of it is extremely relevant to the technologies world and understanding, other possible explanations for what are called unidentified aerial phenomena. And we have a lot of interesting background going back to, these summary reports for analysis on titanium alloys that were done by Battelle, and they were analyzing samples that were of unknown materials and using this carbon tetrachloride method, chlorine carbon tetrachloride method, where they basically dissolve it in chlorine and measure the off gases to figure out what's in the metal. And that's how they would have, if they had some kind of Roswell memory foil material that was indestructible and made by aliens, this is how they would decompose it and analyze it. So it's interesting that research was done. There's paperwork on it, and it links to this Battelle Corporation, which I think is way more central to the narrative than the Wilson docs or any of this mainstream narrative garbage crap that's out there. According to my research, Battelle was involved with its director, Howard C. Cross, in a second Project Blue Book that occurred parallel to the original Project Blue Book. Well, the public was given one version of Project Blue Book. There was another classified version that was held behind closed doors, much like these hearings, where a lot of this research was done by this top metallurgy company and national defense contractor of the day, who currently manages all of our national labs. All of the national laboratories are managed by Battelle currently. So it's just amazing that this big of a oversight could have happened in Congress, that they're not looking at an organization like Battelle, which was tied through the Pentagon memorandum to and numerous other documents. So they denied evidence of UFO debris. Well, we have documented cases where NATO troops recovered UFO debris and sent it to the U.S. Government, and through the chain of command, it went up the military, and eventually it went to a top metallurgy contractor, which was of course Battelle. This whole secret black hole. It's a private institution. It's nonprofit, so it doesn't pay taxes. It's also untouchable by FOIA because it's a private institution and it's not actually a government entity. So the Pentagon can say, no, we don't have any record. We don't have any info or records or data or anything on that, because it all goes into this black hole that, Battelle conveniently made for them during the Manhattan Project to hide Manhattan Project secrets, because Battelle's the ones that made war for the first plutonium bomb and the first atomic weapons. So it's all been hid under this. It's all been hidden under this, secret government group. And at Battelle Memorial Institute, and a second Project Blue Book, which was managed by Howard C. Cross, which was the director of Battelle. And this stuff is the real key. There's tons of intelligence that documents on the materials and the real science of UAP and the research that's been done into spintronics, condensed matter physics, polariton condensates, room temperature superconductors. There's tons of stuff. If you dig through the literature, it's going to take you a year to really dig through all that scientific content. Yet we have Mike Tyson out here versus a 4-year-old, telling everybody that he's, God's gift to ufology, and that he's going to take on the Pentagon single-handedly and get the truth out to everyone, Meanwhile, he's going to waste valuable, precious time on the floor and just discredit the community and discredit everything much more. And even on here, people are calling him a fraud and stuff, which I thought was hilarious, because people know they're not stupid, Jeremy. Like, maybe you are. Not this Jeremy. Sorry, I've been around. So I interviewed Area 51 veteran and CIA electronic warfare pioneer T.D. Barnes. After I read this article, I reached out to him and got him on the show for an interview. Want to fly out and interview him in person, man. The guy's just amazing. And but I had a really good interview with him. I wish I could have structured it a little bit better, but he at least appreciated the questions. Some of them were a little bit, I didn't give enough background talk to the audience, and it's more for advanced people who are really into this stuff to just dig into the finer details. But yeah, basically TD Barnes, the head of Area 51, he thinks all this stuff that they're seeing out there is just electronic warfare technology. And I thought that's pretty funny, because let's see what's going on here with let me just share the audio real quick. This is the new Skinwalker Ranch, so we're just going to play this real quick.
We're about to tilt the rocket and shoot it right through whatever this is.
Tonight, when astronomers visit,
You've had glitches here that you don't see other places.
Never had them before.
they are shocked by what they see.
What is that? There it is!
The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. All new tonight at 9. Only on the History Channel.
We're about to tilt the
There it is. A little tiny light in the sky. So there's this whole thing right here. Interesting, this cone projection kind of thing. I don't know exactly what we're looking at because the context of the cuts are so quick. And this whole thing's built around entertainment. And Brandon Fugel is the guy who posted this. He's the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, and he's obviously capitalizing off a lot of this stuff. He's good friends with some of these key players, a lot of the same key players that we see, Bigelow Aerospace, George Knapp, this core UFO crew. Interesting stuff. The same people that brought us the Bob Lazar stuff, the same people that have been, I believe, I don't know, are they leading us down? They seem to have promoted a lot of self-serving misinformation over the years. That's for sure. But the government hearings need to stay away from these types of CIA players and potential, connected people, and deal with what the American people and real researchers and stuff want, which is to go after this 21 trillion, this trillion, whether it's how many trillion is it? Is it 21 trillion, 2.3 trillion? Is it 230 trillion? We need to dig into this. Oh, there's Leslie Kean in the background at this hearing. That's pretty funny how she was there. I didn't notice that detail before. I got to share that. Hold up. Yeah. Now check this out. In this picture right here. That's Leslie Kean right there in the background at the UAP hearing with the Pentagon guy. So again, Stephen Greer calls Leslie Kean another CIA plant or whatever in his documentary that came out. He basically calls out Leslie Kean and says that she's like a CIA plant, and that's the reason that she got this whole thing. They published it all in the New York Times, and it's all to build it up for this false narrative that the CIA can keep control of the subject, and it can all get swept under the rug, or not. All the old stuff can get swept under the rug, and they can kind of rebrand it and move forward with some of the disclosure in a different way. And then there's other people that say, yeah, well, Greer's a plant too, what he did with the Disclosure Project was the real thing, and that he's shifting the blame to Leslie Kean on that she's the one that. I think there were a lot of plants in Disclosure Project, totally, and I think that some of those plants got to Stephen Greer, and Stephen Greer was just a simple country doctor, he doesn't really get the science on this stuff, really, and I think that he was misled with the Orion Project and a lot of these other projects that he was involved with that led him down a lot of false rabbit holes in the past. And he, convinced him that he knew more information than he really knew. And, I don't know. I'd like to talk to Stephen Greer and get the story straight on some of the stuff, but I don't know if he would talk to a guy like me. It would have to be like more of an off the record thing, because he seems more like he does more produced stuff. It seems. I don't know. He's done a couple interviews. He did an interview with Secure Team, and it'd be cool. I have connection to Stephen Greer firsthand through those Third Phase of the Moon guys. Actually, they did a documentary with Stephen called Above Top Secret, and I'm hoping to consult some and provide some information for some of their upcoming films to dig more into this Battelle connection and some more of my technical briefing on the technologies, which goes into the CIA's Project Rainbow, starting with, in 1946, right around 1947, with the whole invisibility and stealth program that basically started out there around nuclear magnetic resonance and leading up to the discovery of metamaterials in the 80s. And the real history of some of the science behind this stuff, which isn't well talked about. It's not, it's hard to really get a good overview of this stuff. But we talk about, we blasted off all these nuclear bombs, and we sent out all this radiation into space, showing the key signature that we're making atomic weapons. We've unlocked the secrets of the atom. These are the type of signatures that we'd be looking for in the future, to look for, civilizations out there that are just becoming, intelligent, I guess, if you can call it that. But yeah, the whole Project Blue Book thing, this was the cover up of the past. They hired these scientists who were super skeptical to, debunk everything. And in the background, they had Howard Cross and these metallurgists from Battelle and guys like John Archibald Wheeler writing papers, on all this stuff behind the scenes. It said that John von Neumann was actually one of the guys brought out to the Roswell crash site. And right after Roswell, he published a paper on self-replicating space probes right after the Roswell incident. And then, you have guys like Howard Cross and Battelle, or not Howard Cross, but John Archibald Wheeler, writing his It from Bit, and all these quantum non-locality, all these theories, which could, are still being used today to kind of explain the physics of these craft. And they had regular flight engineers, trying to design saucer-shaped craft with conventional known aeronautics at the time. This guy wasn't a deep thinker or a physicist, but he was a civilian engineer who was nonetheless, hired to explore aerodynamics of disc-shaped objects, including the Canadian company that made the Avro car based on the Coanda effect. Then you had some interesting anti-gravity research that was done in the U.S. down in this secret college, University of Chapel Hill. And they're making money. I don't know, man. It would be great to have Greer on and talk to him. I don't know if it would happen, but there's a lot of hotheads in this audience. So, because we deal with a lot of frauds, and it's frustrating when you follow something and then you waste so much time on it only to realize that it was a dead end and didn't have actionable intelligence that actually could lead us anywhere. A lot of false promises over the years, and the science is still being developed and debated and experimented with to this day on, how does this stuff work? How does this, is there anti-gravity somewhere? Can we figure it out with these advanced materials? Is there microwaves involved or light craft? Is it, beams? We can do some really interesting stuff with this light technology, which can explain a lot of UAPs with this new hypersonic drones and hypersonic weapons systems and these smart skins. These, but you go through the real research and you realize that Bob Lazar doesn't have a degree in physics. He doesn't have any papers published. But guys like this who did work for Skunkworks and do, and you start finding the real physicists and the real scientists and start digging through the real key science of it. Not just the surface level politics or personalities or people stuff, but the real science. Digging into this is a crazy idea for a quantum computer. This is not how the aliens build theirs. Rest assured, It's all in this. All in this interesting, smart skin technologies. But yeah, a lot of my research is pumped into this document, which I'll link to in the description of this video, so that people can go and find it and dig through it if they want. And I'll try to put more links and include more stuff in the descriptions as we go along, because there's a lot of interesting stuff, including these MP UAVs, which were these craft which are launched from submarine, and then they can fly around, and then they fire these really crazy missile systems, and then they can re-enter the water, and they get scooped back up by the submarine and brought back into these portholes. But they're yeah, they launch them from these old school submarines that used to house ballistic missiles in the subs. And they look like UFOs, and they fly real close and real fast to the water, and they even go in and out of the water. So lots of things that look like UFOs that are just normal things, but it's important for aerospace intelligence enthusiasts to be aware of such craft that are flying around out there, for leaping to conclusions like Chris Mellon and others did with that party balloon. But yeah, physics, I think, does have answers for the future, and we need to, study physics and learn how to fill in this chasm of ignorance, because we don't have the full picture and the full understanding of physics yet. There's lots of gaps in our understanding of physics, and if you want to know where they are, there's a guide, there's a roadmap, and it's called quantum gravity. And if you can figure out quantum gravity and what makes quantum gravity work, then join the club. We have APEC conference run by Tim Ventura, and we have a bunch of experimenters, including my friend Mark Sokol, Falcon Space, who helped come up with the whole idea to throw experiments and real time physics and engineering to put this stuff to the test. And we're going through a lot of the experiments and running experiments on this stuff, and also creating a forum where we've gotten tons of these scientists to come out of the woodwork and present and share information. Way more people with way more information to share than any of the names that Corbett drops in his video, where he talks about Mike Tyson beating up 4-year-olds. Yeah, so we're on a whole nother level with what we're doing over here, and this is the kind of stuff that they talk about maybe briefly in that classified hearing, but I doubt they go into like the real. This is all locked up in SAPs and so deep down the rabbit hole that it I don't think anyone in the government's been able to connect the dots with all the secrecy and bureaucracy the way that we've been able to with this community, and bringing this information out to the public and bringing it together. Because I've been doing this, relentlessly for the past 17 years, and people just out of the woodwork who worked on this kind of stuff flock to this type of channel, and they share more information, and we constantly move the ball further down the court with disclosure through those efforts. And it's no thanks to people like Jeremy Corbell, who recycled a garbage story, a story that I believe is almost completely garbage. And if people want to learn more about the Lazar story, I encourage them, we got to get it. If anyone can interview Lazar or get him on the record, go over the timeline. Just establish the timeline. The timeline's super important for establishing a narrative of what went on. If you're investigating anything about what really happened with somebody who's their character and their information's under question, especially a guy like Bob Lazar, where they hear this lie repeated constantly by his promoters that there's no records, the government destroyed all the records of him. Well, that's not true. There's plenty of records, and those records go back, and it's really interesting to read through and learn the timeline of Bob Lazar. Not enough people do reading in this community. They just want quick answers and want to be on a team. And that's what Jeremy Corbell's good at. He's good at pretending that, he's got a team. I'm going to play this clip real quick. The false champion. The stringer.
What this is $145 trillion.
Yes. Huge numbers.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And a quick update on a story that's been developing, I guess, over the past couple of years. You may have heard Dr. Mark Skidmore, professor at Michigan State University, had gone through the accounting statements of the Department of Defense and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We found $21 trillion in undocumented adjustments, which is almost as big as the national debt. And anyway, he was on Greg Hunter's show a week or two ago. He's updated the figures, so let's just play a second of what he had to say here.
If you wrap up the entire amount of money with the 30, the 20, the 94, we're talking about just the covert and overt debt, the missing money, undocumented. We're talking about $145 trillion. That's what we're talking about.
I wouldn't call the unsupported adjustments debt.
Well,
who's it owed to?
We don't know what it is, but it's
but
the numbers of what this is $145 trillion.
Yes. Huge numbers.
That's a massive number. It just, does that make the country stronger, or does it make it susceptible for a pie in the face?
I'll answer that one if I may, or actually I won't answer. I'll leave that aside. You can imagine my answer, but there you heard it.
I guess it really depends on what we spent that money on. If we wasted it all on hookers and coke, then yeah, we're fucked. But if we spent that on UAP technology and we actually have, a lot of this crazy advanced tech that's in the briefing, and these metals and analyze these metals and try to reverse engineer some of this stuff, then heck, we might be further along. But Jesus.
Dr. Mark Skidmore now up to $145 trillion of missing money. Not that he lost, but that he has calculated. So far, the only response that I know of from the government is to remove all of the accounting statements. Say that's in the interest of national security.
Yep.
I believe they called it FASB 56. Sounds more to me like hiding the evidence. But
into the black hole.
Anyway, I'll leave that for you to decide. That's the news for today, but hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because I will be back later on with some more silver news.
Right on. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Mark Skidmore is we're trying to get him on a show, or me on a show with him. Anyways, I want to dig more into this missing money and just what could be bought with that, because it's super interesting when you listen to the guys who worked on these programs talk about it, like electronic warfare pioneer TD Barnes from Area 51, saying this is all spoofing technology, saying all this stuff that they're seeing out at Skinwalker Ranch, right? Let's find that Skinwalker Ranch stuff. Best videos. I want to see the best videos of what's going on out there. The amazing footage. Let's just see.
They are kinds of beings. When they appear on Earth, they try to do it covertly. Some come from a totally different reality. Others come from different planets. They all have their own agenda.
When we had EBA 1 in captivity from 1947, 1952, one of the big questions was, do you have a soul? EBA 1 said, absolutely, I have a soul. It is eternal.
There are phenomena going on. We also have different life forms, and the Pentagon reports
this is an ad
that. So when Earth enters a full harmonious level 4 consciousness, those things will appear and they will affect everyone. And we can see that there are
This
some
is
forces
nuts.
on this planet, extraterrestrial forces, that try to ascend humanity faster.
Okay. Gaia TV.
So I have the footage that I'd like to show you ready, and we're going to watch this cow.
After Linda and the rest of the team finished checking out the remains of the dead cow, they joined Brandon, Dragon, and I in the command center, where Eric was eager to share with us something amazing he noticed in the surveillance footage.
The surveillance cameras captured the ordeal that this animal went through over a period of several hours. We're looking towards the right extreme.
Yes, it was.
I'm going to zoom in on it.
That's the tree that we found the cow by, right there.
Right out here.
Yeah.
Is that black object the cow?
Yeah, that's it, Tom. The cow is right here. What we'll do is go forward very slowly and watch what happens with her.
Watch how she moves. It's interesting.
And you see the cow starts to get up. I'm going to do this very slowly, frame by frame, so we can watch what's happening with her.
Oh my God.
So here, I can't help but also notice that there's something happening here.
Whoa, hey, look at that. Look at that.
It looks like an object above the tree.
And it happens right when the cow moves, raises up. Go back and show them where you first see it, Mary.
Okay, so this is where something else does enter the frame. The next frame, the object is here. The cow is trying to get up on her feet.
The cow reacted, right? The moment that
The cow heard the bird flying over it and decided to stand up at that very moment.
object appeared above the cow was reacting.
Yes. Wow. Dun 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 dun.
Something is clearly happening here on the ranch. We've seen all sorts of weird signals. We've been exposed to radiation, seen toxic gases, and now we have this cow dying, and there's a strange object flying at really fast speeds above it. This could be the start of actually an eye-opening experience and experiment. We might find something here that's a lot deeper than we think.
At first, when I saw this object, my rational mind tried to make sense of it. Tried to make it look like an airplane or a bird or a bug or something. But the more I looked at it, the more I thought about it, it was not any of those things.
What was this craft doing out there, and why at the very time this cow was dying was this craft seen in the sky? I think it's very intriguing as to why these two events are taking place at the same time.
Holy cow.
This is not a mutilation in the sense that we did not find the animal cut up and emptied of its blood or anything of that sort. This is perhaps one of the most well-documented events of such a suspicious and sudden cattle death on a ranch where activity of this nature is known to have taken place.
Wow. Dude, super stoked. Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. Let's find something else now. Oh, this is the good stuff.
This week in our
You want to do it, Dan? Let's open it up and get some people on here. Show me your best Sasquatch video. Show me your best. Here's the StreamYard link. Anyone wants to join? Let's get on. Open lines, dude. Let's do it. Let's open it up and start talking some, Skinwalker Ranch, Bob Lazar. What do you guys want?
Our series of reports on UFOs, we learned a number of things. That not everybody who sees a UFO is crazy, that our government has lied about UFO information, that it's withheld UFO files,
Yes, they
and
have.
even spied on UFO witnesses.
We've also heard from scientists who say life elsewhere in the universe is virtually a certainty. And we heard that a majority of Americans believe that UFOs are real and come from space. Tonight, in part 5 of his report, George Knapp introduces us to a local man with an amazing and disturbing story. George.
Gary and Mary Ruth, we've been working on this story for a long time, and we'll tell you right up front that it's going to be hard to swallow at first. This week, we've heard the contention of UFO researchers that there's a secret government within our government. While that may be hard to believe coming from the UFO perspective, we've certainly learned in Watergate and the Iran-Contra scandal that factions within our government can and do pursue their own hidden agendas outside of the law, outside the control of Congress, or the knowledge of the American people. This is exactly the type of operation we'll hear about tonight. It's a chilling scenario with worldwide implications that may have its roots right here. Area 51, that mysterious corner of the Nevada test site, is no longer much of a secret. The fact that secretive things go on.
I think, dude, George Knapp, like, at some point he had to have gotten, like, just swept up into all this, dude. You know what I mean? Yeah, he did. Like, he was a reporter for KLAS way back in the day, and you know, he broke a lot of this stuff. So and he was one of the few reporters that was like touching it and stuff. But I'm like wondering, you know, like when you start like reporting on this stuff, you must get to a point where like they're like, listen, you can't talk about this or you can't talk about that. You know, when did that happen, and did it I don't know, just curious, that whole connection, you know, because there's all these interesting connections with George Knapp, and you know, he funded TTSA. He was on like the board of, and you know, the board for the company and stuff, and Knapp is your mentor, not mine. Yeah, get it.
On here is a given, even to the Soviets, who make daily spy flights over the facility to take a peek at what's going on. These photos, never before shown in public, are about as close as anyone will ever come to seeing what the place looks like again. The dry bed of Groom Lake, corrugated metal buildings, a 3-mile-long runway, and some highly sophisticated radar and detection equipment. It's been known by many names over the years: Dreamland, the Ranch, the Skunk Works. If ever there was a place to test a secret new technology, this is it. And that's exactly what's been done here for decades. Area 51 is where Francis Gary Powers and the other U-2 pilots were trained in the 50s, and where the U-2 itself was developed. The SR-71 spy planes that spotted Soviet missiles in Cuba in the early 60s were also developed at 51. 51 is where stealth technology was nurtured, where Star Wars devices are still tested, and where all manner of CIA monkey business has been plotted and refined. It's the perfect place for secret things. But of course, that's no secret.
Monkey business.
Is ringed by the forbidden vastness of the Nevada test site, by the looming Groom Mountains, and by sparsely populated desert expanses. The few people who do live out here have no love lost for the military, but they're conservative, patriotic, and they mind their own business. You ever see stuff you can't explain?
Sure. Lots of stuff.
Care to elaborate?
No.
On any given night at the Rachel Bar and Grill, you might find 3 or 4 people who work at Area 51, there amid the flowing Budweisers and cowboy hats. You might find them, but they aren't going to talk to you, not about the things they've seen over the mountains. A steady trickle of curiosity seekers flows through here, strangers drawn by strange stories of lights in the night sky. Their questions also go unanswered. No one who's worked at Dreamland has ever publicly acknowledged what so many people have suspected for years, that alien technology is being tested in the Nevada desert. The speculation first surfaced in documents obtained by UFO researchers, documents about something called Project Aquarius. The documents, allegedly prepared for an organization called MJ-12, state that a program to fly recovered alien spacecraft was established in 1972 and is continuing in Nevada. The National Security Agency has confirmed it does have a Project Aquarius, but denies it has anything to do with flying saucers. NSA will not say what Project Aquarius is. Speculation was heightened in 1984 when the Air Force seized nearly 90,000 acres around Groom Lake. The action was, by most accounts, illegal. During congressional hearings about the land grab, Congressman John Seiberling grilled the military about the legal authority used in the action and was told the authority was at a much, much higher level than the Air Force. Seiberling asked what authority is higher than the laws of the United States. The Air Force official said he could respond, but only in a closed briefing. In 1987, when the Air Force sought to renew its stranglehold on the Groom Range, news articles once again mentioned the...
All right, so that Project Aquarius thing, before we just breeze right over that, the whole Project Aquarius thing was actually this Richard Doty, who was a U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, OSI, secret agent that spread disinformation to the UFO community. Right, this new age kind of UFO model. It was almost like a new age religion. Yeah, and a lot of the pillars of ufology are based around a lot of these sort of age old things. This Project Aquarius was like the Serpo stuff, and it's basically, he said that there was this exchange program with the Zeta Reticuli aliens. And this all predates Bob Lazar. You know, Bob Lazar talked about the Zeta Reticuli aliens too, and all that. But it's interesting that this and the light just flickered in my living room, so I'm just like weird when that kind of stuff happens, and I'm talking about this kind of crap.
Talk about alien spacecraft, and subsequent articles in national magazines quoted unnamed sources about things of alien origin flying in Nevada, things that would make filmmaker George Lucas drool. Despite the speculation, no one who knew Area 51 from the inside ever talked publicly about the saucer stories.
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
The live interview with the shadowy Dennis drew international attention. Portions were broadcast by radio in 6 European countries and in a nationally televised TV special in Japan.
Actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs.
Despite numerous inquiries and feelers, Dennis has remained anonymous until now. His real name is Robert Lazar, a young scientist with eclectic interests. The choice of Dennis was an inside joke. He says that's the name of his superior at Groom Lake. It wasn't a joke to Dennis.
He called right after and he said, "Do you have any idea what we're going to do to you now?" And I said, "Well, no." He hung up the phone.
Lazar's story is by any standards fantastic. He says he's telling it in order to protect himself. He says he was hired to work at an area called S4.
So, by the way, his boss was allegedly in the extended interview, they asked him his name, and he said Dennis Mariani. Right? He said his boss's name was Dennis. Dennis Mariani, like this. And it's interesting that he got all the UFO documents from John Lear, and in that stuff was this video of there's something called the Mariana UFO case. And it was one of the first UFO incidents captured on video by the military. And people can look that up, but that was allegedly his last name of his supervisor. So again, we can't find anyone with that name. Just like Mike Thigpen, who Jeremy Corbell claims to have interviewed and talked to at length, even though there's no recording, no evidence, nothing of it anywhere. Yeah, it's pretty. There's no evidence of these people having existed, and can't find them anywhere, and they look like made up names. So, challenge anyone who can find that and get that information to show us. So, but yeah, the other thing was this was the original interview where he had his face blacked out. That was in May of 1989 that he gave that interview. And then the second interview where he came forward, this one was in October which is October 1989, and that's when he first talked about the element 115. And then he gave another subsequent interview. There's a couple different interviews, and you can tell by the clothes that he's wearing which interview it was. And but yeah, let's go back to this one.
What we're going to do to you now. And I said, well, no. He hung up the phone.
Lazar's story is by any standards fantastic. He says he's telling it in order to protect himself. He says he was hired to work at an area called S4, which is a few miles south of Groom Lake. At S4, he says, are flying saucers, antimatter reactors, and other working examples of technology that is seemingly beyond human capabilities.
Right. This came from somewhere else. I mean, as bizarre as that is to believe, but I mean, it's there. I saw it. I know what the current state of the art is in physics, and it can't be done.
Checking out Lazar's credentials proved to be a difficult task.
Right.
He says he earned
So,
degrees in physics and electronics, but the schools we contact.
So I want to show something real quick first before we go on, and then we got Thom in the background. I'm going to bring him on. What's up, Thom? Are you there?
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Jerry, man. Can you just give me 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure. And
Thanks.
the link is right here for anyone else that wants to jump on. Guys, more than welcome. Anyone who wants to jump in and talk. But the B-2 Spirit bomber production began at Plant 42, and apparently it took place at a place called Site 4, which is right here in the literature. Site 4. It's right in this article. Let me see if I can't blow this up, but I'll give people a link to it right here on Twitter so that they can go and look at this photo. Here's the StreamYard link if you want to join, and here's the photo. If you want to check out that photo, this is from a magazine, and it was so there's a place out at Plant 42 where the secret stealth program and these B-2s were built, called Site 4. And there's also a place at Tonopah Test Range, if you look it up, right? Tonopah Site 4, according to T.D. Barnes, and in an interview with T.D. Barnes. This page is not working now. Yeah, so you'll find it on Site 4 on other hand. Yeah, so it's this location right here at Tonopah Test Range. And it's this all these are different radar systems, right? So we built mock radar systems of the Russian, Chinese, and all these different types of radar that they have. So their best radar systems, we go and like steal their technology, we build a mock-up of it, and then we figure out how to spoof it and how to work around it and test and hide from it and everything, hide our aircraft from it and everything. That's what Site 4 is out at Tonopah. It's another top secret facility. So there's a lot of top secret facility, at least two other that we know of documented secret facilities called Site 4, which aren't in Papoose Lake. Again, if you look up Project 57, you'll find that the Papoose Lake and that whole area is really contaminated. It's not a good place to build a base. And it's highly contaminated, Papoose Lake, and there's no satellite data of anything ever being there. There's been debates over facilities that could be considered where Bob Lazar might have worked, but again, I don't know. I think that Area 51's got. If you go to Area 51, it's got plenty of room out there on the base to do stuff. Sorry. huge hangar facilities and just like a small town worth of. And with those $21 trillion, I mean, think about the underground facilities that we could have out here, and how many hangars underground and what we could store out there. It's just ridiculous. Welcome, Lord Ludicrous.
Yeah, hey man, how you doing?
Oh, this is a joke. Campers, Moss. Yeah, this is people do weird stuff on the internet. Anyways, yeah, Project 57, it's all contaminated out there at Papoose Lake. We haven't found any kind of we've tried to find evidence of a base out there, and there's literally nothing. There's no underground facility because actually certain times a year the lake floods, and that guy's Gabe Zeifman went and did this flyover, and he actually flew over the base. Yeah, this is the guy right here. And he flew, he took these rare photos with this high def camera of the whole base and the whole area. And got some pictures of Area 51, got pictures of Papoose Lake in real up close high def. And there's nothing there at Papoose Lake in any of the photos. And it even shows there's water on the lake. See, in this photo, this is Papoose Dry Lake. You can tell this is the cliffs, the mountainside of the area where Bob Lazar originally put S4 in the drawings and documents that he said. It's right in this area. But then this is where the lake bed was, where Jerry Friedman said that he saw the lights on. And it could have been lights reflecting off the water that was actually on the surface. He said he saw like something open up. And it could have just been light reflecting off the surface, because it does flood out, and water moisture could deposit there during the nighttime and then dry out during the daytime in the sun. In the desert out there, it's kind of a weird environment. There's this dry lake bed, but it was obviously a wet lake bed at one point, and I guess it goes back and forth still.
Yeah, George Knapp did not like that interview too much, did he?
Yeah, the Jerry Friedman stuff, he even had to address it at one point with the Bob Lazar story. And Jerry Friedman was an archaeologist. He actually it's Freeman, not Friedman. Jerry Freeman. Yeah, this is the Area 51 guy. Yeah, the man who walked on Papoose Lake. And this guy was an archaeologist. He was looking for the trail of the lost 49ers, and he was walking out there up Nye Canyon from the south, and walked right out on Papoose Lake bed. Has pictures of himself out there on it. And yeah, and then he got like poisoned, I guess. Like, I mean, it's so radioactive out there. But he ended up dying years later, and it said apparently his daughter said he already had the sickness or something, and he just did it as like his final thing, because he's like, oh fuck it, I'm gonna die anyway, let him shoot me,
Yeah, that guy's story is pretty wild. It's pretty cool what he was able to do with going out there and camping out and staying out there as long as he did.
Yeah, I don't think you could do that now. The security is much different now.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, this is where he
just because of that also.
Yeah, this is where he had to talk about it. That was the interview, George Knapp.
Yeah, that flyover stuff was cool. I think, what was it, on a Thanksgiving, something like that, where the base and the air traffic was really low, so they let him fly in a little closer.
Yeah, all the workers out there are home for the holidays, and they're on break, on leave. So
yeah, it's pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that guy was a key part of this stuff that people who are new to this don't know about this evidence. And of course, Jeremy Corbell will never ever talk about this stuff, this side of the whole story, or that Lazar timeline, or any of that stuff. But he'll get on there and pretend to be Mike Tyson versus a 4-year-old.
Yeah, that was an interesting comment. But I mean, he did get his ego fed with the hearings, so.
Oh God! I mean, it's just so. Well, that was the whole point. Is that they set a guy like him up to take credit for getting disinformation entered into the public record on behalf of ufology. So that we can just further discredit all of us. It's just, God.
Well, that's what was so interesting is they thanked him, and then they later went on to debunk his videos and say that they were just drones. That's what was interesting to me is, that they thanked him, and then they went on to debunk his videos.
Yeah, right. They had Seth Shostak and these other guys on. Yeah, this is a good show. But again, Jeremy Corbell is pretty much hopefully irrelevant by this point. I mean, we're just trying to make sure we nail the vampire down and into his coffin and tell him, Jesus Christ, Jeremy, like you're doing more harm than good. Come on my show and debate me on Bob Lazar. Stop going on Twitter and responding to me under your shell account, Skeptical Believers, which every time I talk shit about Corbell on Twitter, this random shell account called Skeptical Believer shows up to defend Corbell. And it's totally not Jeremy Corbell under a sock account like Lou Elizondo was caught using it, admitted to using. But yeah, you guys are pathetic, man. I don't even have a sock account. Sometimes I'll just I just type things under my own account all the time, and sometimes we'll just be me and like my friends we'll be watching like streams, and somebody will shout out something funny, and I'll just type it in and enter it in the chat. People are like, what the hell? So it's like, and then other people, all my critics use it. They're like, oh, see, look, he's not serious. He's not a serious scientist. Like, you can't take him seriously. Look at this, and they just try to destroy my credibility on like lame stuff like that. It's hilarious. It's like the theater that goes on out there.
Well, one can gather a lot of intelligence through sock puppet accounts. So, what people will. What people will push, what people will repeat, what they'll push back on, what questions they'll ask. I mean, that's all that was a information gathering campaign. And then you compile that together and you can pick which shows that those people follow. And, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, we're making an impact, and we're definitely out there, man. We got 200 people watching this live right now. This is great. This is a good number for a stream right now. This is great. Thank you all. You guys rock. Raina Cruz, you are awesome. Wally, Tango Foxtrot, Bobby Broadway, Kevin Andrew, Emmy, Albertus, everybody glitched. Battelle, more metallurgy. This dude's awesome. Always he's been lighting it up on Battelle ever since I started up on it. And we got to get a team of people like us to really go after this. We really need to go after this hard.
I like your comparison to Manhattan Project 2.0. Like that's a really
the
good
Manhattan
way to
Project,
break it down for people to understand how deep some of this stuff goes. I think that's a great example and
it's actually it's a continuation of the Manhattan Project. I don't know if it's 2.0, maybe it's just version 7.0, because they've probably just had all kinds of this stuff going in the background secretly. UFO science, it's just something in the defense budget for years. totally.
$2 trillion goes a long way, you know, whether it's 21 trillion that's missing by now, which I'm sure that it's every bit of that or more. That's a lot of freaking money. I mean, that's a country, it's a breakaway civilization. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's more than FU money. It's
yeah.
Was there ever any investigation done after the World Trade Centers collapsed on that missing money that Runfeld talked about, or has it just been completely written out since?
I know that for the next 8 years, as the criminals took charge of that administration, that it definitely was not investigated. But I don't know, and I don't think anyone's ever tried to audit it since with it from within. It's just been like, I don't know. It's been like this black hole.
Plus 2 decades of Afghanistan expenditure on top of it since, I guess, eh?
Yeah, man, Halliburton, you know, $75 meals and $250 cots and $400 blankets and whatever.
Well, that's how they hid. That's how they hid the accounting during the Manhattan Project. So they had to develop a lot of those techniques to hide all this stuff during the Manhattan Project. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's going on again now. $40 billion to Ukraine, and like half of it is going to the CIA and to Lockheed and all these defense contractors to replenish missiles and whatnot. It's crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, this is money that's going to Ukraine, but it's going to, you know, our fighter jets and drone killing, you know, tank killing drones and, you know, all this technology. So let me see. I'd like to get a sense on the total dollar amount for the Manhattan Project, right? Cost.
And that was back when gas was like a nickel a gallon.
The Manhattan Project began modestly in 1939, but grew to employ more than 130,000 people and cost nearly $2 billion, equivalent to 23 billion in 2020. So 23 billion in 2020. So we have 1,000 times that amount. With if it was 23 trillion, right?
21, but
yeah, say 21.
Just in DOD and HUD.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So is that 100 times that or 1,000 times? That's 1,000 times that, or roughly, right?
Well, I can speak to, so like in 2015, the Army budget was approximately $126 billion, and their accounting adjustments for that 1 year were 6.5 trillion.
Yeah, that's literally the 1,000x multiple. The numbers are just so large. It's mind-boggling. It's hard to really wrap the mind around how much has been stolen.
900. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's
and they can narrow it down to most of those.
Project. It's hundreds of times larger than the Manhattan Project.
It's only it's less than 150 transactions, or around 150 transactions that account for that 6.5 trillion. But all it shows up as is a transaction, and there's no other information associated with the transaction, such as they don't have a receipt.
All of that in 6 transactions and no receipt.
Well, 150 transactions.
150. That's insane.
Yeah. According to their own
to you, 100 billion report. To you, and it's by. Has it gone off world? It must have, really.
It's all on satellites
because the computer systems don't communicate. One sub-agency runs some Mac system, and it doesn't cooperate with someone else's Windows 98 network that they're still running in the wild, you know. But that still doesn't account for this. Also, they won't explain those 150 transactions, what they're for. As Jeremy was discussing, Professor Mark Skidmore's issued FOIAs for further information, and although he's received some, it was all redacted, everything he got.
The Pentagon, apparently.
It's just so crazy. That's so much money.
Dude, that's ridiculous. And to think that we don't have flying saucers out there with some of this stuff. Like,
where are we in debt to? It's like this planet owes these trillions. These trillions have just disappeared into it. It has to like no longer literally be on this planet. Like, what is the only other explanation?
Well, some of it could actually be flowing to other countries. You know, there's a lot of countries that use dollars as their own currency.
What
So
a
to
lot of that
equalize them-
money,
a lot of it's borrowed from China too, to keep in mind. So like,
and a lot of that money goes to covert action, covert warfare, dirty wars and
Yeah.
stuff like what's going on in Syria and all that stuff. I mean, look how much money they're making off the Saudis, and the Saudis still won't release any oil. I mean, and they're still bombing the shit out of Syria, killing innocent people. It's crazy. I mean, that's not being funded.
And Yemen.
Through Congress. It's
But I
being
think-
funded somehow.
The Saudi contract, the most recent one's for like 50 to maybe 150 billion over several years.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
still a fraction. That's 1/54th of that 6.5 trillion or whatever, so
Oh, right. No, yeah. Or what we give
Tiny
to Israel, or I
inflow.
mean, some of that money goes into buying software and spying software and stuff like that, I'm sure.
Well, I know
Spying on
Professor
everybody.
Skidmore's reached out to several people at Treasury, the Treasury Department, and beyond that initial communication, they basically ghost him.
Like, everything's digital now. They should be able to track it. It's not like they're handing off
Yeah,
bags
well,
of
we did. Well,
$100,000
that's how I
bills
actually
anymore.
Yeah,
It's just hard to
that's
fathom
how I
that
met.
much money.
Yeah, it's crazy. Especially, that's the expenditures, but then you wonder, there should also be a way to track the inflows of the money. Because a lot of those accounting adjustments are actually where the Army would, for example, say, well, according to our budget, we received $128 billion in 2015. Officially, that's what was authorized by Congress. But then they have accounting adjustments to explain how they received trillions more than that too. It's not just, the adjustments aren't just for expenditures. Some of these adjustments are also for, they can't explain how they are getting more money than they were allocated. Which is also pretty shady, like money laundering.
oh, this is a Corbett and
that's Catherine.
with Catherine. Yeah, Corbett. I mean, not Corbett.
Catherine, her most recent interview is with Dark Journalist, I think. Or,
Corbett.
no, it's actually with some hippie chick, but she did an interview with Dark
Replace
Journalist.
the bell with a bet. Yeah. Replace the L, the bell end. I mean, this was a good interview. I want to find the part about the
staff to the senator who was in charge of the appropriation committee for HUD, that HUD was, quote, being run as a criminal enterprise. Now, what you need to understand is HUD is run essentially by the Treasury Department, the Department of Justice, the New York Fed member banks, JP Morgan lead, and a group of big IT contractors at that time, Lockheed Martin, DynCorp was in there. And so you can't run HUD as a criminal enterprise unless they intentionally are organized to run it that way, which I later came to believe. So what we saw was not a movement of the overt equity out of the US. What we saw was a covert movement of massive amounts of money being pulled out of the United States to be reinvested. You know, your guess is as good as mine. I think some of it was reinvested in Asia, as he said it would be. But I think some of it really represents an explosion of the covert side of the national security state and a real vision of, okay, we can run the planet on a unipolar model using the national security state and the war on terror as basically a way to assert control of all resources globally. You're looking at a command and control model for all resources, and that necessitated dramatic increases in movements of our military globally, which is exactly what happened.
Just to back up that timeline, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the first Inspector General report of the DoD missing trillions from 1999, looking at the 98 books?
Yes. Yeah. Now, we found it. It was my attorney who found the HUD IG's testimony on the 1998 year saying the money was missing and they'd given up trying to audit and we're just going to quit. Now, if your bank account was missing $59,000, I dare say you wouldn't just give up and say, well, if the bankers promised you don't worry, it won't happen next year. You'd say, no, I want my $59,000 back. So it was, the behavior was bizarre. But then I think it was not that long after we discovered that 1.1 trillion went missing from DOD in 1 year. It was 99 or 2000, and then 2.3 trillion. And that's why when Rumsfeld stood up the day before 9/11 and said there's 2.3 trillion, we thought it was a modified hangout because he didn't mention the 1.1 missing the year before. So it was up to 3.3 or 3.4, depending on how you round up trillion, as of the day of 9/11. And in fact, that Friday, we were coming out with a major front cover story article in Insight Magazine about the missing money and how it broke down by state and what it meant to every person. And, whether it was their student loans or the pension funds, this is $65,000 per person. And so we're talking about a dramatic amount of money hitting people, whether it hits them and, it disappears from their pocketbook.
Stolen.
Or it hits them because they're taking terrible
Now you're paying it
currency
from your gas
debasement,
tank.
and their cost of goods is going up 10% a year.
Even more now.
All right, so you have raised the specter of some of the things that could be enabled with this type of money. For example, underground bases, spraying programs, secret space program, things that sound far-fetched to anyone who thinks, obviously, there must be a financial infrastructure for this. We'd see it in the books. Well, no, we cannot see it in the books. That's the point. What do we know and what do we not know about where this money is actually going?
We don't know. First of all, we don't know how much money this really is in terms of cash or credit, hard credit, because some of the money could be revenues and some expenses. So, for example, we could be occupying Iraq and Afghanistan and taking very valuable minerals and oil out of them, selling the oil and laundering the money back through, or the drug sales back through DOD. I became convinced after many, many years of research that drug money was being laundered through the HUD accounts. So some of this could be revenues, some of this could be expenditures. We don't know. What we do know is there's plenty of anecdotal information that documents that there are extraordinary expenditures going on in terms of underground bases. Now, could that money be clawed through the black budget in the DoD budget? There's a process where money can be clawed out of different agencies and taken into a black budget and is not disclosed because it's a sort of secret budget. So could all those underground bases have been funded from the black budget? Yes, but they could also have been funded from this. When the Kennedy assassination happened, if you look at the rise and the percentage of space expenditures as a portion of the budget and the GDP, what happened is after that it started to fall. What I believe is, in fact, it continued, they just took it dark. And this, these various forms of disappearing or missing money was one of the ways they funded. So I happen to believe that there's tremendous expenditure spent on space that we don't see. If you look at globalization could happen, James, because we had the the global satellite infrastructure necessary to ensure enforcement. No investor puts money any place where they cannot enforce. And it was the global satellites and whatever our presence was in space that was very, very critical to allowing globalization and that kind of investment to happen. But the other thing we know is we have tremendous evidence of all sorts of unusual spaceships flying around the planet. And what I've said to various people is, that's $150 trillion of hardware. Where'd it come from? Somebody built it, right? So if you simply look at the kind of hardware that's floating around the planet and flying around the planet and the high technology, it doesn't take a big intuitive leap to say, I'll bet you we built some of it.
Yeah. And even what is on the record that we know that we don't know, the classified space shuttle flights that we know nothing about what they were up there for, or the X-37B, which they like to tout as, well, this mysterious space plane that we don't know anything about, just came back from its latest 2-year mission or whatever it is. But that's what we know that we don't know.
So let me bring up another one. One of the things that is so remarkable about the U.S. economy, the U.S. economy is very centrally controlled. And it's controlled because we use government money to control places as opposed to optimize the economy in places. So we waste, for example, if you look at private prisons, I've written a book sort of describing the waste of private prisons. And private prisons in 1996 were costing $154,000 per person per year. I mean, fantastically wasteful amounts of money. And so this negative return on investment has been unbelievably expensive. And in 1996, when we started globalization, add to that extraordinary manipulation of the markets. With some of it was derivatives, but it would have required a real stockpile of money. I mean, you would need, what one investor will call the hammer, or sometimes they'll call it a bazooka. He says, if you have a bazooka, then you don't need to use it. And, but we really created somehow a financial bazooka that no matter, where the gold price wanted to go, we could press it down and you could just layer on derivatives after derivatives. So some of this money, my guess was absolutely parked in the exchange stabilization fund in places like that and use that to help make this global model go, because there are big parts of this global model that are very expensive and have a negative return on investment. It's all about the control and concentration of cash. It's not about the control and sort of optimization of equity. So I think that's another place. Global spraying is one, I believe, is one of these expenses, because no matter where you are in the world, when you sort of watch the spraying and try and count up, okay, how many planes, how many pilots, how much would the spray cost? And you just make a wild, we call it a WAG estimate, wild ass guess. We're talking about something which is fantastically expensive. And so my guess is that some of this money has gone into global spraying. Finally, during the period, if you sort of look at when the money's going missing, and then you look at the offshore havens, there is, it's like the Pillsbury Doughboy. This is leaving and this is rising, and it's almost so perfect. It's unbelievable. So I think a lot of cash has gotten stockpiled offshore in a whole variety of interests. Finally, one of the interesting or more interesting uses, and I can't say this is one of the biggest ones, underground bases in global spraying is pretty big. One of the things you see is all the different fraudsters and money networks seem to have a proclivity for investing in advanced research. So Madoff, some of the money that disappeared through Madoff went to MIT brain research. Some of the money that went through Epstein went to MIT brain research. And I happen to think that a lot of the political problems we're facing right now, the biggest one is mind control. And I think if you look at how much money has gone into manipulating human beings, manipulating their minds, accessing their minds, building the kind of NSA surveillance we know we have, you're trying to build a global mind that can be centrally controlled. And I think a fantastic amount of money has gone into that research.
Absolutely. And that ties into the DARPA Brain Initiative and also serial scamsters like Elon Musk and his Neuralink and things like that.
I used to have a friend who was very knowledgeable about Musk and the people around him who kept saying, look, Musk is very, very dark. There's very serious occult things going on here. You have to, pay attention and not quote Musk. This was all to justify me not quoting Musk. And then when I watched the his Neuralink speech, that's a man on a leash. But it was one of the most bizarre speeches I've ever watched in my life. And I've seen a lot of bizarre speeches.
There are kind of jokes that go around on the internet that he's some sort of cyborg or something, but it really does make you wonder what exactly his brain is on the way.
Well, I don't laugh. I ran into one person very recently. I used to listen to some of the people who would leave Washington and say, some of the presidents are cyborgs or doubles, or, you never know what to make of it. But I dealt with one person not that long ago. One of the things I love about humans is they always have this divine spark. No matter how far gone they are, they've got that divine spark. And, I was raised as a Quaker, so we're big on divine spark, and you have to find the light in everybody. I dealt with a person who had no spark, none. It was every time you talk to them, it was like, when the hourglass spins, they were waiting for their download from the AI and the neural network to tell them what to say next. And it was the most bizarre experience, one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. And I said, oh no, could this really be possible?
One never knows. And the thing is that the economic opacity is what enables any of this to potentially be true. We truly have no idea what is going on under the cover of this.
Here's what's interesting. There's a history. What we ought to do, we ought to get a group of us and do a history of secret money for secret operations and secret armies, starting in 47 to 49, or we can even go back from, to 1913 in the creation of the Federal Reserve, because it's the fiat currency and the ability to use that fiat currency globally that makes this all go. So it goes back to the Federal Reserve, and we go back.
1947, Battelle.
Thousands of people who fought and died to try and
1947. That year just keeps coming up with everything.
Operations and secret armies, and that's what it is. It's just secret money, secret operations, secret armies. Forrestal got killed for that reason. McCarthy got killed for that reason. Kennedy got killed for that reason. The people who died in 9/11 got killed for the reason. All the people who were destroyed on the drug narcotics trafficking into their communities, same thing. It's the same story for, almost a century. And yet somehow we never look at it as one continuous story. And that's what it is.
That's exactly right. That's something that really occurred to me when I was putting together my Century of Enslavement documentary, is that essentially the history of America has been the history against the central bankers or people who want to create that institution. And when you see the struggle in that light, a lot of the history actually makes sense in a very different way. So I agree.
Right.
Completely.
And what's remarkable is if you look at the system of secret money for secret operations and secret armies, if you look at who runs it and who controls it, it's a remarkable.
What was that, Bernard? And by the way, this is
Catherine Austin Fitzgerald, I believe is her name.
Fitz. It's Catherine
Austin Fitzgerald. I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's who she is.
Yeah, this is
Austin Fitz.
Yeah.
We're watching Where Did the Missing Trillions Go? Catherine Austin Fitz with James Corbett. Not to be confused with Jeremy Corbell.
Yeah, James Corbett does really good in-depth research online. And it's funny how his name is so similar, right?
Actually, a real researcher, unlike the other spelling. Yes, this is really good, awesome deep state stuff, and it's awesome that they're now touching upon, because I've reached out to these guys and I'm like, dude, there's some stuff going on with the science that we're not paying attention to fully, and I think that we're just now starting to wrap our heads around. And it's awesome that they mentioned secret space program and just what the heck could you buy with that much missing money? This is like a Manhattan Project was only 23 billion in 2020 dollars, right? So just imagine.
So for those who haven't seen Pentaveret on Netflix, the new Michael Myers mini conspiracy theory.
I need another beer before we get into that. Let's just hold off. All right, let's
I was just going to mention, it's funny that they don't do any of the real conspiracies like UFOs or UAPs, not mentioned at all. It's only the garbage that is brought to light in this mainstream.
Yeah, well, that's all they're allowed to in the mainstream, is bring the garbage to light. This stuff is, yes,
remarkably few group of people. And that's why I've always thought, why are we letting a remarkably small group of people do this? Now, I believe that one of the sticking points that has given them their power is you have, you know, in 47 and 49, when they assassinated Forrestal, I think you had a group of people who really believed that the general population couldn't handle the truth. You know, whether I don't necessarily agree with that, I think they can, but I think they really believe that they were sincere. And then once you build up an infrastructure that is financially addicted to secrecy, which is the most powerful financial addiction in the world, James, once you build up something, the legal liability of trying to reverse it, you know, could be catastrophic. And they don't, you have a cycle of disrespect between the general population and the leadership don't trust the general population to do sort of an adult transition. And so we have this cycle of disrespect on top of it, and it puts us in a real pickle. And meantime, you know, the whatever you want to call it, the secret operations and secret armies just get hungrier and hungrier and hungrier.
Absolutely. We can see how that makes sense in an institutional sense. But it raises the question. You're an investigator, and one of the things I love about the work you do at Solari is that you're very fact and detail oriented, and you're able to draw out the meaning of information as it lies. So the question then becomes, given that generally, if we are looking for the real basis of an operation, how it works, how it's functioning, we follow the money. The money speaks the tale. We can't do that in this case. So how do we start to get a handle on these secret programs?
Well, it's interesting. I think, you know, nobody's as smart as all of us, is what one pundit said. And I think what we have to do is we have to start with the unanswered questions. What are the important questions?
Corbett, for the record, you know, Jeremy Corbell's smarter than all of us, apparently, according to him. So,
And what are unanswered? And then what is the information, even whether it's anecdotal or intuitive, that we can gather together that will start to inform those questions? And if you just keep asking those questions and collecting information, you know, the group intelligence starts to kick in and go to work, because
dude, Finn,
and part of it is learning how to.
Oh my God!
I can't believe you're talking about it. This is nuts.
We're here live from Australia. I know we got to get into this, and I wanted to pull up some good interviews and really get into this. And
dude, I've been trying to chat to this chick for like over a year, and I just can't get through to her because I feel like she would have so much knowledge on this shit. Sorry to swear.
I know we gotta, like, if I get her on, I'm gonna have you on too to.
I don't think I'm in the league to chat to this chick, man. I think that'd be more you. I'd love to, but I don't know if I have enough
Kate
knowledge.
Schneider would know. She's got to get a hold of her, and Dark Journalists got to get her on with on some time and get me on that panel to really dig into this, because
that'd be sick.
You know, you heard her. She talks about. She's like, oh, I don't even know. Like, she's starting to get into like, well, where do these black budget programs go, and where's the science research, and where's that all around, and that's where I could get in on this and really lead down some rabbit holes on some of this stuff anyway.
That would be awesome. Because when she starts talking about this amount of money, like, it's so unfathomable to think about how much it actually is. Because people in the chat, they've been saying shit like buying drugs or buying cars or buying islands or whatever. It's not that. Like, you could buy countries with this amount of money. Like, it's $21 trillion. Like, you could, there's no limit to what you could buy with that. It's insane. It is
I
literally
was
insane.
saying that. Yeah, I was saying that too. Like, like you can't buy that much cocaine. You
Yeah.
wouldn't. You couldn't do
You
that.
couldn't do it. You
cocaine.
couldn't do it. It's insane. Like you generally
Even
have
if
to be
you gave it
building
away to
something.
your friends.
You'd have to. Yeah. If you gave it away to everyone you knew, you would
Yeah.
still have 20 trillion left over.
I
Like
know.
it's mental. It's genuinely mental. Sorry to cut everyone off.
No, this is
enjoying
good stuff, man. I'm glad that we got. I hope
I don't know
I
if
don't get
anyone
flagged for
mentioned
this. I don't think Corbett or her would flag us for sharing this, because this is key information, man. This is
100%.
Like connect, the sort of
if we don't get this through to the people who are trying to get this UFO issue through to Congress, then we're like all lost, because this is our stranglehold right now to, like, we have an issue where it's provable the government's lying, and we know that they're lying, and we can call them out and get some of these secrets out, and we have to, like, use it as leverage, because I mean this is where it really dives into it. This is down the rabbit hole with the money. Just follow the money.
Yeah,
Jeremy,
Congress found out
we
how much
know about what's going on with what we see in.
Sorry, what was that?
I was going to say, if Congress found out that there was 21 trillion missing, like that's going to set them off. Like surely.
I know, that's why I keep repeating this, and I'm only getting I'm getting attention from a couple people, because people seeing that and they're like, yeah, you're right, and then I get other people like, wait, what are you talking about? This missing trillions and all this stuff, and I keep posting the things like, little one-liners from these movies like Independence Day. You really think we spend $60,000 on a toilet seat and 20 grand on a hammer, or,
They lost two
Jeremy,
trillion
the,
on the F-35s or something like that. It was in the news.
Both of those
trillions on the F-35.
Oh, the most
I know
expensive
that's just
plane ever developed. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I know it's just
another
a small,
one, dude.
small. Yeah, that's just a small percentage, but
It's just a chunk of how they hide stuff. It's not another program; it's another subdivision program, and that's just being used as cover for it, because that's old technology. It's like
I just love how they actually come out and actually say misplaced 21 trillion. Like they actually say that, they acknowledge it. Like I sent in a Forbes article before, and they literally use the word misplaced. Like how can you get away with saying misplaced? That is absurd on so many levels.
I don't think the Pope uses a $60,000 toilet seat.
Well, what's the percentage
Maybe
of the money
Kanye.
lost to the deficit? I mean, what's our deficit in the U.S.? I mean, if you have $21 trillion lost,
just the amount of money in circulation.
Right, but it's
if there's no deficit, there would be zero money.
No. I
how do you
understand
get
that, but I'm
dollars
saying that
if they don't?
Right, but we're in a $20 or $30 trillion deficit, and we've got 21
it has to
trillion
keep
missing in
going
military
up.
funds. So, right, no, I understand that. I'm just saying that it's
Both can exist at the same time.
How could the total deficit be coincidentally similar to the amount of the missing money?
Right,
Because it would mean
exactly.
that there's actually twice as much money in circulation as on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. I think
That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because this is black budget stuff. So this money is getting created directly from the Fed straight into the government.
Well, it's probably just locked up in drug cartels' basements, because all the
21 trillion of it.
Yeah.
HUD.
Well, some of it, Mark was able to track down some of, actually on the inflow side. So on the inflow side, anyone can pull up what's called the daily treasury statement. So every single day, the Treasury Department publishes a PDF file that contains basically like their checkbook, balance and all the accounts, and it shows what the inflows and outflows every day. It's a 2-page document, maybe 3 pages. And
you've got to understand though, from a military standpoint, if they are injecting money straight into the military, into these black budgets, it would be a security risk to include that in the publicly released data.
Yeah.
So
no, it's not.
Right.
That's the thing. It doesn't. It's the line item is strictly. It's on page 2, table 3B, I believe. That's where you'll find the government Like
if you want to
Count
share a screen,
series.
and that would be cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
Federal Reserve. What an oxymoron! It's neither federal nor a reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus,
It's straight Orwellian speak right there.
But if there's any military or any government employees listening, if you have any of your retirement funds invested in the government G fund, a lot of people do, male employees, that G fund, if you monitor that inflow outflow, every day that's being used to fund and finance something where they issue 1 day bonds, 1 day notes. You know, like you can only buy like a T note that's like a four week note is the shortest. Usually you buy like, you know, a 5-year bond, a 25-year or 20, 30-year,
Scam.
you know, treasury bond. They're issuing 1 day notes
in our
but they're
neighborhood.
Yeah, but there's no way to know beyond that top line level of, you know, who is being financed on a day-to-day basis to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars.
Well,
They're
Ukraine's got to get
issuing
their
and
financing
redeeming,
somewhere.
you know, I just checked for 2020, they did $100 trillion in issuances and redemptions.
That's
100 trillion. 100
Can we
trillion.
keep watching Catherine though? Because I'm really getting into what she was saying.
recycled money, dude.
Back to Catherine.
Yeah, it's some sort of short-term financing of something at a massive scale.
Oh, Catherine, yeah. I'm sorry, but I gotta give my girl some attention now. All right.
What a girl to have. We need her
What
on
we
the
see
team.
in our neighborhoods. So one of the reasons I was launching software called Community Wizard that would allow you to look at the federal budget in your community is that you would start to notice, you know, so when I was Assistant Secretary of Housing, I would get a download of where all the foreclosures were. And then you'd go to that block in Dallas and it said you have 10 foreclosures and there'd be an empty lot. You know, connect the dots. So I think part of it is learning how to bring it down into my day-to-day life and seeing it in my day-to-day life and taking the actions that can either protect me from it in my day-to-day life or help me sort of navigate it. Because, you know, sometimes when you bump into this in your day-to-day life, you just need to, you know, move away. Sometimes, you know, you're in the middle of a meeting and realize, the people I'm meeting with are not on the up and up, and you just have to navigate your way through.
Yeah. And on that note, it is important to bring this back to something that we can actually do about this rather than just, I mean, it's fun to speculate about where this is going and what have you, but you're doing something very important over at Solari that I hope people have seen. It's called the My 21 2020 campaign.
Right.
And we'll put the link into the video highlighting this campaign. But I want to talk about what it is that people can do about this 21 trillion or whatever it is, and taking some of that power back into their own hands.
So I believe a fantastic amount of money has disappeared both on the bailouts and on missing money. And we have the power to get it back. And the reason I've stuck with this for 30 years is I've known we have the power to get it back. So let's talk a little bit about how to do that. First of all, if you go to missingmoney.solari.com, there is a wealth of documentation on the legal structures of how finance works in the federal government. So if you want to do significant due diligence,
Yes,
we have,
yes.
I got 2 of my attorneys to write out the whole framework. And I've done a piece with my attorney called Caveat Emptor on how.
Yeah, and now that this UAP topic is hot, just keep, you know, tweeting at the senators and keep tweeting at the reps about that missing 21 trillion and include that in the conversation.
Hashtag missing 21 trill, hashtag UFO Twitter. And now you remember tweet while it's being decensored momentarily while it's open due to Elon's takeover bid.
Oh God. You think he's part of the secret space program?
No way.
Dude,
You almost let everyone know for sure.
SpaceX, right? As a cover for you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's the cover. He's the one still making the most efficient rockets, putting all the money into the rockets, continuing as if that's the real technology when it's a joke.
Think about 900 billion.
Dude, he's the
in
cover
stolen-
story, dude. Think about it. He's like the mad cover story, and then now like he's buying social media to fix it up. Yet I'm still shadow banned. Like, no, come
He
on.
couldn't be a bigger cover story.
No,
Like his
couldn't
cars
work
are
better,
could be
dude.
called Musks.
He's
Instead,
the
they're called a
alien trying to
Tesla.
Neuralink your brain, dude. He's the Borg. He's the Borg
But
queen.
like, he's literally the biggest cover of all time because he's taken the knowledge of Nikola Tesla when the average person searches
How to
it
do due
and
diligence.
misdirects it to his shitty car company that still hasn't solved where that electricity even comes from, yet alone having a car that doesn't burn up and explode.
Wouldn't it be great if he bought YouTube though, and then just straight up YouTube? That'd be awesome.
That I couldn't agree more with you on that, though. He is not. He doesn't seem to be all bad. That's the thing.
Yeah. Usually,
But
when the
then
CIA
the lesser of evils, right? It's like, is he still evil, or that's the question.
Yeah, no, I think he's just a wild card. I don't think there's anyone pushing him.
There we go.
The stuff he says seems too uncontrolled to be an agent of any kind.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I could be wrong. I don't know. I obviously don't know.
Nearly 900 billion was stolen from the COVID relief fund, and they've only recovered a small amount of it. Think about that, 900 billion.
That's These numbers we're talking about, like it's so hard to comprehend how large these numbers are.
I gotta get an interview with Elon. I'm gonna. Elon's a good guy. Yeah, I mean, he's dude. I mean, of all the billionaires in the world, he's doing a lot for technology, and so I will.
He is, and
you know what I
he
mean?
when he talks, like his most recent TED talk. I recommend everyone give it a listen because it does sound like he is speaking from the heart for a lot of it, and at least wants like humanity to survive.
Yeah,
and
dude,
like the insanity we're in at literally the Davos this week, where Henry Kissinger was the lone voice of reason saying that like we need to de-escalate this war so it doesn't turn into thermonuclear destruction. It's like, what the hell is wrong with these people? It blows my mind.
Sit here like I got to give him the chance because maybe he's a little robotic in a lot of his ways and stuff, and maybe that led him to make PayPal and become a billionaire and lead his role in all this stuff. But he does have some engineering skills, and I think that Elon is I can't completely hate on him. I don't know his
doing a lot of
motive.
good.
I hope he does
Especially
better.
when
I
a
hope
lot
he
of
does
his
more.
ex-employees come out and they talk.
We all
positively
need to
about
do more, and
I agree with that.
He's fighting
the fact that he's putting Mars as a destination on humanity's like watch list and goals again, that's a good thing. So you definitely can't hate everything. He's freed up Twitter, where literally half the YouTube personalities I know got emails and got their Twitters reinstated just last month because of him. So he has affected for the good, right?
It's good.
Yeah, dude,
Seems
he just
fair.
launched. He just launched 54 satellites today.
I'm getting like
and then
followers
and then
again
they
now.
landed. They landed the freaking booster on the launch pad. I mean, that's pretty freaking wild.
I swear I was like locked at 7K for a while, but I started getting more followers again on Twitter now. Like I'm still growing, but it was bad for a while, man.
You need to try to get on Lex Friedman, man. That would be great.
I gotta get on Lex.
Fantastic
Dude,
conversation.
he's up,
That'd be a
he's
great
up here too.
conversation.
Dude, you and Lex would be wicked.
Yeah,
that'd
would
get
be
the
a
most views.
fantastic conversation.
And like Jeremy, you should be at 1 million YouTube subscribers now. Like you've literally
easily.
been at 109 for at least a year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's some sus going on there for sure. Some sus.
Hey man, maybe Toe will have maybe Kurt will have Bob Lazar on, and you can squeeze some questions in there, Jeremy.
Yo,
That'd be fantastic.
I may have been invited out to Desert Blast this summer to go meet Bob.
Oh
There you go, man. That's awesome. I hope you get to do it.
That would be cool, huh?
Yeah,
I
man.
hope you see some real things.
Oh, I just hope you get to go for the experience. That would be
Maybe
good.
he'll give me the Element 115, and I can go. It's all set
Fingers
up.
crossed for you, brother. Fingers crossed.
They're all gonna kill me when I go out there. And Corbell's gonna be waiting.
Yeah.
Ask him to show you his supposed particle accelerator collider that he has in his backyard.
Dude, he's gonna be waiting for me up on the hill like a Soundgarden video, ready to fucking fight in his karate gi, ready for quantum jujitsu to do battle, and I'm gonna be like, and I'm gonna get on. It's gonna be on, dude. We're gonna film the whole thing from like multiple angles. It'll be an epic UFO showdown of the century. Just wait.
All we need is one. We just need one to come down into that show. Just one UFO.
Fucking Highlander. All right.
If you're an investor. So there's a wealth of the detailed information. But then my 21-20-20 is to bring it down to the 2020 campaign. Campaigns in the United States, James, are a time when people get together with their neighbors and really discuss the issues. You know, it's remarkable how much the Americans still invest in having a discussion of serious issues during the campaign. And so we wanted to get the 21 trillion back into the 2020 discussion, but in a way where people could use it. The first way to get this money back is to use it as political leverage. So I wrote a piece on the pension funds, pension.solari.com. It's called The State of Our Pensions. And I pointed out that the U.S. pension funds are underfunded by $5 trillion, which is a lot less than 21 trillion. And so I want to make sure that the pension trustees and pension beneficiaries, when the time comes, can come to the table and say, well, wait a minute, you gave $24 trillion to the banks, and there's 21 trillion missing from the federal government. Why is it a problem to fund that 5 trillion? Now, in the law, there's something called a common law right of offset. And if you are a contractor who has facilitated illegal payments, or whether you're an IT contractor running the payment systems, or you're a bank at the New York Fed running the depository and the payment systems. The New York Fed is the depository for the US government. So all banking transactions go through the New York Fed, and their members as agents providing that depository. So if you're JP Morgan Chase and you've facilitated these transactions under the law, you're liable for those monies if those were illegal transactions and you knew it. So, you know, JP Morgan Chase in 2018 earned $32 billion. $32 billion a year for the next 100 years would fund a lot of pension funds, would fund a lot of Social Security. So there are ways, whether it's political leverage, or there are ways, whether it's basically holding the people responsible who've done this, there are ways of getting this money back. So if you look at the posters, one of my favorite posters is this really cool looking young guy, and he says, you know, about my student loan debt, Mr. President.
Well, if it was really spent on hookers and coke, I don't think we'll get it back. But if it was spent on UFO technology, dude, well, it's coming. Guys, free technology for all. Maybe we could spend like some of that money, on guillotines. That's what someone said. Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah, they can be Bluetooth guillotines.
Real substance on the table.
So let me describe. 21 trillion is $65,000 per person. And I don't care what your issue is, whether it's student loan debt, whether it's pension fund, whether it's healthcare, 65,000 per person. So for a family of 4, you know, we're talking about $250,000. That solves many, if not most, practical problems. So this is real money, and if we apply it as a real money strategically to the things that government is supposed to be doing, but they're not doing because that money disappeared someplace else, then we're talking about having a real conversation. And that's why, you know, it was really irritating when people started to talk about reparations. I said, what about reparations for everybody? You know, let's do some real accounting.
The money is there. Let's do
it
some.
Is there.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I very much appreciate that, but I actually wanted to leave today's conversation on On a different note, because of course all of this takes place within the context of society generally and what's happening with the general mindset. And I wanted to point at something from your 2018 wrap-up, where you wrote about 2019, get ready, get ready, get ready. And you said, as we debate our sovereign rights and freedoms, we are experiencing an unprecedented effort to assert central control, often by covert means, and to brainwash and mind control the general population into financing and supporting the forces acting against us. As we finance this invasion, secrecy, corruption, and organized crime continue to grow. At the same time, our culture continues to be debased. So you laid out 4 scenarios for 2019 based on 2 variables, humanity and transparency. Explain to people a little bit about that and what you think.
Right. So I think the most important issue before every one of us is, are we going to be part of a society which is human, or are we going in a society that's lawful? Or are we going to be part of a society where inhumane practices prevail? And if you look at what some people call transhumanism, what we've now started at Solaria to call subhumanism, I think we're talking about central control, applying technologies in ways which are indeed slavery. I think they are subhuman and unacceptable. And as a society, what's important is not money. What is important is, are we going to be a human society? Are we going to be individual beings who are sovereign under divine authority? Or are we basically going to be natural resources like oil deposits? I think that's the biggest question before us. And I think the most important every one of us has to do in our daily life is say, no, I refuse to participate in that, and I stand for a human society.
So tell us about your scenarios that you're working on for 2020.
So 2020, last year, the big issue was transparency or not, because so you make 4 quadrants. You have 2 variables. One is human versus inhuman. One is transparent versus dark. And one of the things I talked a lot about last year, I'll talk a lot about this year, is about how everything's going dark. Right now, I'm about to publish the state of our currencies. And one of the things I'm going to look at is the trajectory of the dollar. And so this time it's going to be human versus inhuman. Again, I think that's the most important issue. But then the question is, will the dollar hold for 2020, or will it go into a steep decline? Will it significantly lose market share in a way that's going to have a major impact throughout the developed world, not just America? The dollar bubble has floated the entire developed world, and you're going to see a very significant shift. So I want to look at after I finish publishing the state of the currencies, I'll look at the sort of the variable of dollar holds for 2020, dollar significantly declines, and then human versus inhuman. And of course, that gives you 4 scenarios. And that'll be part of the annual wrap-up. The annual wrap-up, James, is a wrap-up of the deep state tactics. I published something that you'll find at Missing Money called Personal History. It's my 30 years of trying to stop the money from going missing. And I needed to do it because people kept believing the same excuse every year for 30 years. And I needed a way to say, look, I've been listening to this excuse for 30 years. And so it doesn't hold weight the way it does. So it was to try and give people a sense of the history. And then the last chapter was going to be on all the tactics they use to target and stop people who try and bring transparency to the secret money, the secret operations, and the secret armies. And it got very long. And to my shock and amazement, people were very interested in the day-to-day tactical issues of how control is engineered. So it's been quite one of our most popular things at the Solaria Report this year. We have more to do. We're going to wrap it all up, and in the annual wrap-up, do sort of a mega on the deep state tactics like we did on the Missing Money. And then, of course, we'll have the scenario plans, the scenario designs. I used to do those when I was doing investment advisory for families, and I find them absolutely critical for business planning, investment planning, and sort of personal planning of your time for the year, because it's very important you're successful no matter which way the scenarios go. And it's very, very important, given the change that we're accelerating into. Nobody can predict the future. The future is uncertain. And I believe it's our job to build the future, not to try and predict it and survive it. So scenarios make you flexible and help you learn how to, because I want to make sure that our subscribers succeed no matter what scenario comes true.
exactly right. A good part of planning is to know the different directions that things could be trending and be prepared for those
Right.
eventualities and how much you
Right.
weight each of those scenarios. So how much should I be thinking about this?
Well, I've seen so many people be terribly, terribly hurt by getting vested in a particular scenario. And big mistake. The future is uncertain. And I think, every year we have a section called unanswered questions, because I'm a great believer, even if you can't answer the question, you got to keep asking it. And our biggest unanswered question is, who's really running this? The governance system on this planet is secret and invisible. It's all part of secret money for secret operations for secret armies makes it possible for a small group of people to run a secret governance system. Now, if we're going to re-engineer the financial system is just a subset of the governance system. And so if you want to know how to re-engineer the financial system, you have to be able to answer the question, how does the governance system on planet Earth run? I can't believe I've lived on this planet this long and tried as hard as I have to understand it. And I still couldn't get up in a court of law and document how it's done. And when you think about it, think of how strange it is that we live on a planet with 7 billion people and the fundamental economic and governance model is secret. That's nuts.
Perhaps that says something about human nature and the way humans come together in society. Isn't it interesting how much people are willing to give up just for convenience? Oh, secret government, whatever. As long as I get my burger and football, I'm okay.
Well, but I think that's the mind control kicking in. What I find is that in every business, in every neighborhood, in every place, you have 10% of the people who I call the high energy. They always give their entrepreneurs. They
It's
always
the
give more
boredom and
energy than they
attention
get. If you
span
come
too.
to where I live, my mayor, a lot of the people in the city council, they're those I call them net energy plus people. They want to know. They do want to know, but they also don't want to get their family killed. They care. So they're trying to be effective. They're trying to not waste their time. I spent 11 years litigating with the federal government. And I got to tell you, I worked for free 36,000 hours. I was required by law and regulation in the courts to do 36,000 hours of free work to prove that I was right. Yeah, and they know I was right. So not everybody can afford to do that. Not everybody wants to do that. And I'm very sympathetic. I got mad.
Yeah.
So right.
If you're not mad, you're not paying attention. But also, if you're not doing something about it, then what is it worth getting mad about? So I think that there's the two halves that we have to connect there: the understanding with the action. And that's
the only reason I did it was that line between the human and the inhuman. What they were doing, and I explain it all in my online book, Dylan Reed and the Aristocracy of Stock Profits. What they were doing is they were dropping. They were bringing drugs into poor communities.
Just a quick mention, because I don't want you to have the same fate that my main channel suffered. If you actually are having the porn spam bot attacks, don't post the actual live StreamYard link again into your chat during the stream, because they will come on, they will expose themselves, and your channel will be taken down when they decide to attack you like this. It happened to me. They still haven't even replied to me about giving me my channel back or anything. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. If you have they'll come on your channel live and start showing off naked pictures.
Literally, that's what happened to me in my first 48-hour stream, and that's why they took my channel away 8 months ago. Not a reply since.
Wow.
Or dropping racist language too. I've seen that happen. So somebody will come in and they'll just start dropping all kinds of racist language in the little channel.
Yeah, I had a couple people on. They started just like rambling about other stuff, and it got flagged for flat planet stuff. And I was like, "What the heck?" We weren't even talking about any of that. It was like a whole science episode talking about all this like other stuff, and it got flagged for like
That's crazy.
That box, dude. It's like, oh, they're gonna find a way to put it in this box where it's like it's kept away from the mainstream scientific community and kept away from these certain channels, and it's all like only people that are looking for it real hard can find it.
Exactly. Like last week, my backup channel reached 1,000 subscribers. I started doing a 2-hour live show for like the 1,000th subscriber, and literally during my show, it dropped back down to 998 because they literally unsubscribed people to my channel while I was doing it. Like it reaches the milestone like 3 or 4 times each time. It's crazy.
With Catherine talking like this, do you think it's odd that they haven't tried to come after her? Because I feel like this is some.
Well, I know it's like she talks and she mentions that thing like, oh, well, people don't want to get into this because they don't want to get their family killed. Well, did her family get killed? Like?
I think they did have like threats and stuff that were documented at one point, but yeah, that's
discrediting her as well.
Like how
conspiracy that do you know of any conspiracies where the family got killed? Because the only one I know is the Philip Marshall case, but I don't know of any others.
I don't know of any that have ever been confirmed.
Right, that one they said like it was a murder suicide.
The doctor who was doing the testing on the Korean people up in Maine, HBO made the 3-part series Wormwood about him, where he either jumped or fell from the window from the skyscraper. The Congress under Jimmy Carter paid his family $750,000 as a settlement for his death, for a wrongful death. So there's that.
Not James Forrest, though, right?
His name might be Frank Underwood, but I'm not sure.
Frank Olson?
Olson, yeah. Where they dosed him with LSD at that party.
Yeah.
You know? And he was already becoming depressed.
Where they murder people, but I don't know about murdering their family members or things like that. Do they?
Oh, I see.
They killed that one guy.
Only ever been rumors on that. I don't think anything's ever been confirmed for stuff like that. But then if they wipe out a whole family, who's left to tell the story, really?
Yeah, certainly no one who is close to them is going to report on it once they all get offed. But it instills fear in people. But there was a lot of deaths and suicides with MK Ultra, like a lot. But I never heard of it.
Yeah, I know Mark Skidmore, the other fella who's been working with Catherine on this, has spoken to this issue. He's been asked several times, have you seen black SUVs outside your house, or have you gotten weird calls from, I think the quote was, unsavory characters? And he said no every time. But he also hasn't been able to get anyone to help him who are at first are intrigued. And then when he asks, hey, would you want to work with me just a little bit on this? They never respond. Treasury officials, other academics, even. He even offered to pay, at least on 1 or 2 occasions, CPAs to help, to get someone outside of the academic circle who's just a financial professional, and he would pay them for their time just as any other client, and they turned him down.
Wow. I haven't heard of that. That's pretty nuts.
That's the truth serum.
Yeah. I'm uploading a video with him saying it from his own words. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be up tomorrow. Yeah. Because all of his interviews have been taken down by and large. They're not on YouTube anymore. Well, the channels have been shut down that actually interviewed him. I think is all of RT taken off of YouTube now?
I think they're it's like a suspension they're on at the moment.
For the most part, I think you need like a VPN. Even like RT's Telegram and Sputnik's Telegram in Canada, I know you're not even able to access anymore, which is just crazy.
Yeah, it's all been deleted off of YouTube, I guess. Well, no longer accessible. But even other channels he's been on. I briefly collaborated with Mark on the inflow side of where the money was coming from. So I follow him pretty closely. So I'm doing like a super reel. It was actually because of Jeremy's video the other day. I saw you mentioned the 21 trillion. I'm like, oh yeah, I pull it out. I'm like, so it rendered it. It's uploading now. So I'll be reposting basically the stuff that all got deleted off of YouTube.
Let's see how long it lasts.
Yeah, I'd recommend
Yeah, we'll
starting
see.
maybe with like BitChute or Brighteon or Odyssey to start out. Jeremy, you're muted, brother.
This is not going to be the last time we're going to talk about this. So for sure. So I send me a link to that because I'm going to be probably presenting more stuff on this, and it would be great to have something.
I'll be back in like 10 minutes, guys. I just got to quickly
down.
go, but I'm still watching.
And feel
Gary
free
Webb,
to
you know?
edit down clips of tonight's presentation too, because we covered a lot tonight too, and there's a lot of good clips in there in between. You know, we can put let's get something condensed put together, because I want to get like, we got to get like the whole summary with all the best evidence, like of all the official sources talking about it and saying it, you know, because it's not just me. You know, I want the official sources. I want, you know, Donald Rumsfeld saying this, you know, the guys that, you know.
I pulled every clip I could find, man. Because I included everything you showed tonight.
Yeah.
I cut out part of, because, you know, he goes on a little bit, but actually I had some other stuff that I don't think you actually showed the one where he's before at the hearing where, you know, the senators are yelling at him like, why the hell do you want 50 billion more for the Defense Department budget when you can't even keep track of 2.3 trillion in 1 year? And he just starts fumbling.
It'd be great to get all those little, because I'm sure there's more of those little clips too.
Yeah,
like you get
you
all
just
those
have to
together.
make sure, Jeremy, when using those, that if you get the CPAC version, because then it's public, as opposed to if you use one of the major networks, they'll flag you and take you down right away, because then it's considered copyrighted material if you're playing off of the news networks and stuff like that.
Oh, damn, huh? Well, we got to figure something out, but
this
that'd
is
be
footage, yeah.
that'd be great, because
I don't
I think
think-
if we hammer
maybe-
away at this, we need to make this these trillions and the black budget defense program stuff. That stuff's hidden from the mainstream. We cover it on this channel, and we need to hammer that into these hearings, and you know, make sure that, because all this stuff is probably discussed at the classified hearings, and it needs to be, a lot of it and more of it needs to be public, because it's just opening us
Share
up.
it with your senators. Email your senators, your representatives. Share these episodes with them so they get it and they can see it and know that it's out there.
Would be awesome. Yeah, the 21 trillion. We'll have to come up with more condensed versions of summaries. I don't know. I'm gonna go try to meet with my my, you know, the people, my local legislators, if I can, and put something together. It's gonna happen. So rest assured. All right, guys.
Tom, did you have a video or something, or a picture you said you wanted to share there?
Probably good.
Pentagon, the day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Mr. Secretary, according to the Comptroller General of the United States, there are serious financial management problems at the Pentagon, to which Mr. Cooper alluded. Fiscal year 1999, 2.3 trillion missing. If you could proceed to my second question, please.
The second question, I've forgotten what the second question was.
Oh, friend precious, I'm here. Step away from the window and go back to sleep. Safe from pain and truth and choice. And the poison devils, see, they don't give a about you like I do.
Tony, sit it down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what that is, but it was a cool clip, man. We'll just play this as the outro, I guess. Thank you guys for watching, and let's keep digging into this trillions of dollars that are missing.
Complexity of the systems and tracking it all the way through. Loss. It was a matter before I got there, $2.3 billion that had been accumulated over the period before I got there. Yeah, just do it. There you go. Don't wait. Okay.
Hey, Battelle, did you ever find that $2.3 trillion that you talked about the day before 9/11? Did you ever find it?
It was always there, and what the problem was tracking it through the system. So when I arrived at the Pentagon and they told me that they can't track $2.3 billion that had been accumulated over the period before I got there, it turns out that there was not a legal problem or a loss. It was a matter of the complexity of the systems and tracking it all the way through.
Mr. Secretary,
we got a bill.
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry.
Later, guys. Have a good night.